It is primary day in 4 states, Maine, South Carolina, Nevada, and North Dakota. But the one race that's generating a lot of conversation across the country is in Maine. Senate candidate Graham Platner is favored to win the Democratic nomination despite a string of controversies. He's apologized for a tattoo he had covered up that's widely recognized as a Nazi symbol, as well as problematic internet comments, explicit texts he sent to women who are not his wife, and a New York Times report of allegations of unsettling behavior toward women he dated. Platner, who is a veteran and oyster farmer, appeared to reference the controversies in a social media video out today.
These past few weeks have been brutal.
Dude,
brutal.
I'm so glad he's coming because he will not be attacked here. This is sacred ground.
We didn't even tell anyone.
We appreciate it.
If Platner is the nominee, he'll face incumbent Republican Susan Collins, who was asked about her likely opponent.
The allegations against Graham Platner are extremely troubling and serious, and he owes the people of Maine a detailed answer.
We're keeping an eye on South Carolina, too, where we could see another test of President Trump's endorsement in the Republican primary for governor. We have CBS News team coverage. Political director Finn Gómez is at our Washington bureau. Anthony Salvanto is here at the touchscreen. Caitlin Huey-Burns is on the ground in Maine, and Skylar Henry will join us from South Carolina. So, Finn, let's start with you. In Maine, what are voters saying about Platner and his controversies?
Look, they know about the controversies, but Maine Democrats that CBS News spoke to that seem to be voting for him anyway, essentially shrugging off the latest controversies. For them, this race is about one thing: who can beat incumbent Senator Susan Collins? And that is the key question today. Maine Democratic primary voters have to decide whether Platner's controversies, the tattoo, the Reddit post, the explicit text, the New York Times article, disqualify him, or whether they're willing to take the risk in what is one of the most consequential Senate races of this midterm cycle. Lindsay.
Last night, I spoke to Wisconsin Democratic gubernatorial candidate Francesca Hong. She said policy matters more than the person. In that same vein, our Bob Costa asked Senator Bernie Sanders about Platner. Let's watch that exchange.
When you look at politics in general, there are no saints in the United States Senate. People can argue about this aspect of Graham or another. But to my mind right now, we need allies in the United States Senate who have the guts to take on the big money that is dominating this country.
Is the party as a whole ready to embrace Platner?
Well, Lindsay, I think what Senator Sanders just said captures where a lot of Democrats are right now. The party needs this seat. They need this seat. For Democrats, Maine is crucial to their strategy of trying to win back the Senate, and that is their top priority. As many of them told us, the road to winning the Senate goes through the Pine Tree State. But it's not a uniform stance. There's been some detractors, some Democratic officials whose anxiety has increased over the last couple of weeks as these stories and scandals have continued to come out. Platner's base, of course, is energized, and his progressive populist message is resonating with them. But there's a real question, Lindsay, whether he can gain a broader coalition once Maine pivots to the general election, especially with moderate and independent women. Will they vote for him in November against Collins? Remember, back in 2020, 60% of the voting electorate in Maine was female. Can he win them over? Collins won Maine that cycle, even though Joe Biden carried the state in that presidential election.
Finn Gómez, thank you so much. Let's go to CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. So looking ahead to November, how vulnerable is Susan Collins?
Well, let me look at it this way. Democrats are eyeing Maine because Kamala Harris won the state by 7 points about. So that would imply that, okay, Democrats might have a natural advantage there. On the other hand, back when she last ran, Susan Collins drew 13% of crossover voters, people who had voted at the time for Joe Biden. And so she's won so many times, frankly, in Maine, as well as the fact that it's an older state. There are people in Maine who have voted for her for a long time. That makes this a very particular situation. The other part of this, though, is more broad in the sense that you look at Democrats across the country, and Finn used the word populist back there. Let's pick up on that. Democrats have had trouble in recent years winning over working class voters, winning over white working class voters in many states. And I think some of that also informs what you're seeing here as going forward in Maine, because it's the kind of place where they need to move those kinds of voters in order to have a chance.
Is Maine like do or die for Democrats to flip the Senate?
Well, Susan Collins is the only Republican running for re-election in a state that Kamala Harris won. So in that sense, it's a prime opportunity. More broadly, there are only a handful, maybe 5 or 6, depending on how you analyze it, real pickup or flip opportunities for Democrats. So just by the math, they would have to make the most of each.
Okay, before we let you go, let's talk California, the gubernatorial primary there. What's the latest, and why hasn't this one been called?
The latest is, much as we've said in the night since the election day, we still have ballots coming in. I've got about 1.5 million on my estimate still left. Steyer, who is trailing Steve Hilton, his path is narrowing, let's be clear, but he's also been gaining this 22%. He's up from 19 from 20, so he's still got an outside shot. We will see more ballots tonight. I suspect a substantial amount, and maybe get some clarity on this.
Okay, Anthony Salvanto, thank you so much.